internal rate of return. So as I mentioned, NPV was the most important one for all of this chapter actually. And the internal rate of return, or IRR, is the second most common criteria for investing, is the second most important as well. If you look at any kind of business plans, if you look at, I like to look at a lot of details of quarterly and annual reports of gold miners and stuff like that. So all of them do bring examples of NPV and internal rates of return, how much value is this new mine is going to generate once we build the infrastructure around it, stuff like that. So IRR is the second most commonly used in business, second most important after NPV. And it's kind of same thing as NPV, to be honest. So remember with NPV formula, here's the NPV formula at the top. So here's the formula at the top for NPV, right? We calculate NPV by discounting all of the cash flows. Discount them, add them up, everything, even including the cash flow at zero, the negative one. Once we add up everything, including the cost, that gives us net, after costs, net present value. And to find that, we need to insert some rate. Okay? And IRR is just the opposite. For NPV, we insert zero. We insert zero for NPV. And from that, we rearrange the formula to find this rate, the internal rate that the project will return, will give you. Okay, so that's basically the general idea, is how much rate the project is going to generate for you. Is this factory in Japan going to give you 8% return over the next few years? Or is it going to give you 20% return over the next few years? So it's actually the same as looking at the same NPV formula, but rearranging it. For NPV, we put zero and calculate the rate instead. So if we have a simple example, right? Let's say something like in year zero, investment is negative $1,000, and it's only a one-year project. For example, the return is, let's say, $1,100. How much is the return in percentages? Anyone? How do you guys think? How much profit in percentages are you making in this one-year project?
10%.
10%, right? I mean, really, really easy. How did you get to it? Well, just divide this by this, right? So far, so good. So far, easy. With a 2-year example, it's getting a little bit kind of more difficult. Let's put like 5,500 here and 5,500 here. So it's still 1,100 over 2 years, but with interest on interest. We're going to calculate some details. It's still possible. It's going to be something like, if you really look at it mathematically, it's going to be something like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Remember, guys, you had these quadratic equations in high school. I guess many of you guys had, right? I remember we calculate discriminant for that, plus minus b plus minus square root of whatever it is, I don't remember. It was a long time since I came out of high school, so I don't memorize the formulas. But for a 2-year investment, yeah, we can still do it by hand, although it already gets a bit difficult. But with a 3-year investment, with a 4-year investment, or even with a longer term investment, it's going to turn difficult really, really, really fast. Even with a 4-year investment, which is not that much longer than 2-year investment, this calculation turns into a much more difficult one. It's going to be cx into the power of 2 plus dx into the power of 1 plus abcde equals 0. How do we solve for this equation? That's much more difficult than a simple quadratic equation, right? Things get difficult really fast. So for anything more than 2-year project, for anything more than 2-period projects, it's basically impossible to calculate by hand. Okay. So let's go to Excel. Let's go to Excel. And again, let's have some project. your business is expected to generate the following cash flows using this extension. Okay, and let's say originally we need an investment of say 1,000. Maybe that's already in millions, so that's $1 billion for a business, whatever. And let's have some numbers here. Anywhere between say 20 and 200 maybe. Bit strange, but okay, let's say this is the projection. Okay, and minimum required return is, let's call it 18%. Let's say we have a few questions here. Let's say we have to calculate both NPV and internal rate of return, as well as decide whether we accept or reject this project. Okay, we have everything we need for these. So let's start doing that. NPV is very easy. You already know how to do it. Equals NPV. Open the brackets, enter the rate, and enter the values only starting from value 1. Close the brackets. Don't forget to add the original investment. NPV is negative. Oh my God, looks like we should reject the project. Let's see what IRR says. So let's calculate IRR. For IRR, it's very simple. Equals IRR. In Excel, things are simple. Open the brackets. What does it say? Just values. Just values. Oh, so easy. Guess. It doesn't matter. Forget about the guess or whatever. Don't give your guesses to the computer. It doesn't need it. Close the brackets, enter. That's all. Let's see some details. Because 1.38% is not equal to 1%. I do want some details on the exams. Okay. There. So IRR is 1.38%. The first two questions already answered. Third question. Do we accept or reject? According to NPV, it's negative, so we reject according to NPV. According to IRR, what do we do about IRR? The decision rule for IRR is accept only if IRR is greater than the minimum required return. Okay, so in that case, it's going to give us the same answer for accept or reject as NPV, because we put the minimum required return into the NPV calculation to find whether it's positive or negative. But for IRR, we put NPV 0 and then compare the resulting percent with this. If it's smaller, then reject. If it's bigger, then accept. If it's equal, if this is equal, then NPV is going to show us 0. Then we're not making any money with this project. Yeah, we're not losing any money, but we're not making any money, so we don't accept either. Okay, reject because NPV is less than 0 and IRR is less than the required return. So for IRR, we don't need the required return for the calculations. We need the required return for IRR to make a decision whether we accept or reject. Finish up with IRR. As I said, without the calculator, once you go for more than 2 periods, it gets really difficult. Even with 2 periods, I'll have to Google up the formulas how to solve that quadratic equation. Should be easy enough, takes 10 minutes. But still, anything more than 2 periods is getting really hard. Okay, and Excel, very easy. You just need the values themselves, including the original value. Then you have to manually compare with the required return.